Okay, we are live on Facebook.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Sunday Musings, brought to you by Anubhav Positive Psychology Clinic. I am Paromita Mitra Bhaumik, bringing you this edition on We Are More Than Our Looks. Let me introduce to our esteemed panelists today. We have Dr. Anurabh Kalab with us, who is a psychiatrist based out of Ludhiana, but he is well known all over India and abroad. He has raised awareness about mental health legislation and also is a member of Indian Psychiatric Society for last 40 years. Dr. Kalab is a mentor to many of us who are working in the field of psychiatry and mental health today. He is an author too. His book on short stories is called The Unsafe Asylum on partition, stories of partition and madness is widely read. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Paromita. Thank you for the nice words. Hi, everybody.
Yeah. Ratnaboli is a mental health activist working in Kolkata for a quarter of a century. Her untiring passion for working with mentally ill has led her to a formation of Anjali, which is a mental health organization. And she is also a recipient of a number of awards all over the world. On a personal note, I'm very fond of her, and I told her I'm going to tell everybody that I love her very much. She has a wonderful personality and a wonderful heart. Sujoy.
Thank you, Paromita, and hi everyone. And Paromita, you will be accused of nepotism because that's the buzzword now. Hi, Sujoy. Hi, Dr. Kalab. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Ratna.
Sujoy Prosad Chatterjee is a much acclaimed cultural personality, an actor, and an elocutionist based in Kolkata. He's also a trainer and a voice and diction. He's acted in a number of movies in Kolkata, like Abhidai Bomkesh and Shah Jahan Residency. Sujoy is a person with a voice of his own, and which no one can suppress. Welcome, Sujoy.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Paromita. Thanks for having me.
Welcome, team. I am going to talk about body image a little bit before I can go to the questions. Body image, to have a working definition, is all about how we look at ourselves, our bodies, and how we assume that the world looks at ourselves and our bodies. Now, this has got a very far-reaching consequences on our life satisfaction, our happiness in the long run. I was reading study on Indian Journal of Eating Disorders, which says that about 69 to 84% of females have some kind of body dissatisfaction issues, whereas all those who are having body dissatisfaction issues, out of them, 25 to 40% are males. So it is clear that this kind of body image issues is seen both in males as well as in females, and sadly, they suffer alone. Because again, if you go by the statistics, only 10% of those who are suffering from some kind of body dissatisfaction, where they feel that something needs to be changed in their body image or something needs to be changed for them to be loved, to be accepted by the society, goes for treatment. So with that, we go over to the esteemed panelists. They are known all over the world. I'm sure you're going to enjoy and learn from this program. I would like to start with Ratnaboli. Well, this is not nepotism. The question has been framed to start with you. Ratnaboli, I was just wondering that an age where people are talking about individuality, about originality, about creativity, in such an age, why do men and women want to adhere to certain kind of stereotypes of beauty? That is my question. See, beauty has been has a different definition in different cultures. Like, you know, a person with head shaved is beautiful in Africa, whereas, you know, even a few years back, a full-bodied woman was appreciated in India. But right now, who sets the stereotype, and why do we want to adhere in spite of everything? Like, why is there so much of body shaming if we do not adhere?
Thanks, Paromita, but I'm just wondering, do we all adhere to stereotypes? Because I see Sujoy here, I see you here, I see myself here. By any standards, I do not adhere to any of the stereotyping. I do not have long hair. I am dusky, I'm dark-skinned. So traditionally, I'm not a beautiful person. I mean, not a beautiful person as people construct beauty. So I think much of the beauty discourse has happened based on stereotyping. I will come to that later, but let us first decode what we understand by beauty. I think I'm a very beautiful person. I think I'm very beautiful looking. Sujoy, what do you think?
Oh my God, you're super hot, super duper hot.
Dr. Kala, what do you think?
I totally agree with Sujoy.
So right.
Oh,
So when we talk about beauty, I think what we have to remember is that beauty is a choice that we make. It is a choice that we make with our face, with our body, which is not based on a punishing ideology. Punishing ideology like, you know, the stereotype, the prejudices, the legal judgments, you know, and which has an impact on women psychologically and physiology. For me, beauty is all about making that choice and not really about how I look. And when I made that choice of having extremely cropped hair, I knew that I was making myself beautiful, and we have to reclaim the word beauty. Did that answer your question?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thanks very much. I will come back to you again. Sujoy, I would like to know from you as an actor. You know, actors always maintain an image which is larger than life, you know, some kind of a model. What happens if you don't adhere to that? You know, what happens if you don't, you know, kind of have that larger than life image? What are you scared of? I mean, not you as a person. I mean, you might be different as a person. As an actress, in general.
Unfortunately, I'm not scared of my body at all. I mean, I realized that sooner or later. Initially, I was, because I was made to feel that since I'm fat, I will not be accepted. The way the art scene, I would say the general art scene, I would just not restrict it to films or theater, would accept me. But as I grew older, I realized that now at 42, I realized that I'm much more than my body. And if people fail to accept or recognize that, it's their problem. It's not my problem. One. Second, I was made to feel inferior in my family itself because I'm fat. I mean, my cousins did not spare even a minute to tell me that bhai koto khai, which means my brother eats a lot. I mean, that was not out of jest always. It was serious.
It hurts.
In front of friends, humiliations that one goes through. My friends in school, only a few of them, who still lovingly call me Mota or, you know, whatever they call me. I understand the love. I also get the drift. I got the drift years back in school when, you know, I was made to feel, again, the word inferior because you are obese or you're fat. You know, it's also a fact that when I was growing up, and as children, you know, can be very, very insensitive and cruel as much as they can be very sensitive and understanding. But I have always been, I've always felt ostracized in groups, in play groups, in play schools, or in, you know, among core group of peers or colleagues at workplace that, you know, he's not one of us. So, and that is not because of anything that to do with my orientation primarily. It is also because of that body issue. To answer your question, I needed to set a pretext of that. But as an actor, I've also realized that there are certain roles for which I possibly need to look a little lean and mean, but And that is only because of how the character is being written or portrayed, for which I had taken my, to get rid of the excess fat, to stay healthy, and to eat the right kind of food. That happened to me as a choice. I mean, no one imposed that to me. Ratnadi knows that, during lockdown, I've been walking, I've been doing a lot of exercise, I've been doing, which I did not do earlier. I did not. I just realized that, this is the time that I may possibly devote to, getting back to my feet and doing things that I want to do. So I per se believe that actors, especially in I'm sorry, but use a cliched word, Tollywood and Tollywood, they go through serious body imaging issues.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's more to do with the perception than anything.
Thank you. Dr. Kalab, I would like to come to you, sir. Do you think, when, because you see, body image issues often lead to disordered eating. That's what we have seen. So what are the different kind of disorders that can happen if you grew up? I mean, sometimes, it can develop as early as 7 years, like when people tell you're fat and you don't think you belong. And that makes you a little sad, and then you try to diet, and because you are probably depressed, you cannot hold on to your regime, and then you go back to your weight, and then again it becomes a vicious cycle. So sir, can you tell us some of the disorders which can happen, and although very small percentage go for treatment, but what are the signs and symptoms of this disorder, if you can just throw some light?
See, yeah, you're right that it starts at a very young age. Sometimes as young as 7 or 8, but most of the times it's the teens. It's around that time when one is, extremely sensitive about what other people think of one's body. And a lot of times it comes from the family. It comes particularly, imagine somebody is 15 years old and goes to a family function, and there is this, over-talkative aunt who is also very over-assertive. She stops you and, sort of, looks at you, hugs you, and then goes back, 2 feet and looks at you again, assessing you. And then what she comes up with is that, doesn't your mother, give you something to eat? Either it is that, or it is that you have become healthy. These are, none of them is a compliment. She would never say you look good. It's either that or, it's the other way around. And you are so sensitive, you go back to your room and switch on all the lights and look in the mirror, and that's how it starts. And then there you might find a slight flaw. You might find you should be a little thinner, from here or there. But that is how the preoccupation starts. The hallmark of these disorders is that for something very tiny, almost ignorable, you devote intense preoccupation to it at the exclusion of everything else, your studies, your work, everything. That is when it is. A lot of people, they want to improve, but they don't stop living the rest of their lives. These people do, and they're all young people. You're right that most of them are, young women, and it is surprising. It is baffling that for such a tiny, ignorable thing, and you can't, stop thinking about it. It's a 24 hours job. Now, why is it so? It is so because it comes from a very strong background, which is the culture. Culture is, is seen as something very powerful. What is beautiful is decided by the culture, or at least it used to be. It is changing. I'll come to that. All of us have read about it, heard about it. The Chinese custom of, binding the female children's feet so that they remain small. They were called lotus feet. They supposed to be good for dancing and all that. This happened for 1,000 years, and this, But now what is happening is that role of the culture in defining what is beautiful has been usurped by the fashion and the media and the movies, and which again are very powerful, which are probably even more powerful than the culture. But now these people, these youngsters who get these disorders, like I said, that as many as 20% of them attempt suicide. They're so distressed by something so small. That is why it is a disorder. That is why it is not normal. And many succeed. See, unfortunately, we as psychiatrists, we don't get to see a lot of them. Because they go to the dermatologist, they go to the cosmetologist, they go to the plastic surgeons even, they undergo procedures. Some of them are very costly, some of them. And they should be referred early. They must be referred early because they are not even good business for plastic surgeons or cosmetologists, because these people are never satisfied with the results.
Never satisfied.
Whatever is done to them. So the message is that these colleagues, if they can make out, and lot of time they can, I think they can, because they see a lot of these patients, far more than we see with such patients. Yeah, that's.
Thank you, sir. Ratnaboli, can you unmute yourself? Yeah.
Very quickly, I'm glad that Dr. Kala has brought in the issue of context. But I also want to point out that within our context and within our location, there is this tyranny. There is this tyranny of ideology. There is this tyranny of body, of ideal body. And I think that we have to question that tyranny. Because even when we are talking about stereotype, and when I say tyranny of normalcy, because Dr. Kala also brought in this discussion about thin body and about not so thin body and about fat bodies. The question is how, because with the tyranny comes certain kind of, expectation of your body. Because I know as a 10-year-old, when a mother would refuse a child extra roti because you will become fat, and what impact therefore it can have on your psyche. So one is definitely the culture. Second is what that culture is kind of doing to us in terms of, perpetuating a climate of tyranny. And I think as individuals, as activists, as mental health professionals, we have to question this tyranny of normalcy. And I also want to bring in another issue is what kind of bodies Dr. Kala is talking about. Is Dr. Kala talking about and referring to only those able-bodied people who are immersed, preoccupied in thinking that I should change it? So who's this? What is the body that we are talking about? Who's that body?
Just put in an example. The other day, somebody came to the clinic. This is the first visit of hers. She is a 21-year-old woman who used to chat with a boy on the net, and she got friendly with this person from Jamshedpur. When they met in South City Mall, the guy told her, "You're very beautiful, but you're too big for me," and she had a breakdown. So you see, it was just that, while chatting and everything went fine, but I think, and she started thinking that she is overweight after that. So you see, this body shaming happens in different ways. So after that, this guy actually came down to the clinic with her because he thought it was his quote unquote duty because she had a breakdown, that she should see a mental health professional. And she said, I just told my opinion. I just voiced my opinion that she was too big for me. So you see, he doesn't even realize it's kind of a body shaming. So that is the level of awareness awareness we have, we don't even realize when we are, actually body shaming another person by saying this, that tumi eta kheo na, tumi ota kheo na, you're putting on weight. And, that person knows. And the first thing we, tell somebody when we meet is, oh, you've put on weight or you've lost weight. And you're looking, so even without, understanding, we make such statements and you think that, okay, to look beautiful, you need to lose weight.
Yeah, Sujoy has been raising his hand.
Yes, Sujoy.
Yeah,
yes,
just wanted to make a point that I will actually take a few minutes to talk about this, because I like to address Ratnadi's question of which body later. First thing is the stereotyping that you're talking about also happens in a lot of chat rooms for gay men. And what happens is I'm a part of, I often go and find if I can go for an appropriate date or somebody in a chat room like a Grindr or somewhere. I mean, the obvious question is, what is your body? What are you, fat or slim? What is your weight? What is your weight is a very important question, because there are chat profiles which actually write down very clearly. Good for them. They write, fat uncles are not allowed. If you have a big fat ass, don't come near me. There are warning signals like this. That's one. The second thing is, as rightly pointed out by Ratnadi, what about the bodies of specially abled people who actually have a very difficult time coping with their sexual needs, their needs of acceptance? I mean, we are having this seminar today, Paromita, only because we want to talk about acceptance at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
We're talking about acceptance. Yeah. So acceptance, validation, whatever we call it. Yeah. But the fact is, thank you for having people like Dr. Kala or Ratnadi who are actually beyond their just domain. They address things more sensitively and they talk to us rather than use jargons to talk about their own intellectual wisdom. But that's not true. I mean, it's very important to understand that there are so many bodies, so many bodies. Ratnadi started this issue with I'm dark skinned, I'm not conventionally beautiful. That's so true typically in the cinema world. I mean, look at people like Bipasha Basu, Kali Billi. She used to be called Kali Billi, the black cat. I mean, it was not said in a sexy way. I mean, no. Look at Zinat Aman in the 70s. Yeah, I know she embodied flower power and all the rest of the epithets that she earned. But please understand, we are still whenever there's a casting for a film, unfortunately, or a television series, they look for a fair person.
Sujoy, tell me, if you're into a relationship with someone and that person tells you this, what do you do about it? That is the question. I mean, what do you do about it? You like that person to accept you, to love you, and that person starts saying that, you need to lose weight or you need to dress up in a particular way, and you want acceptance. You actually like that person. So what do you do about that? That is
Paromita, if I'm ever in a relationship with somebody who talks about me getting on with a diet or a health regime, then I would appreciate that, but I have to understand the rationale. I need to know why. If I'm convinced of a reason, like if I have a problem with my weight, if my doctor tells me that, hey, you need to lose weight because of this, to control this, or you have diabetes, so you need to walk so many amount of miles every day. Yeah. In a relationship, things are very different. And especially when you are, you're talking about, I mean, I'm being very blunt here, especially when you are, you are a different, you have a girth, or if you're big build, then problem is especially in terms of sexual relationships, things become not very easy.
Okay.
You're actually made to feel inferior even on bed.
Absolutely.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Ratnaboli, there is something I wanted to ask you. I know you wanted to say. Yes, you please carry on. I will ask you that question a little later. Yes.
Just to very quickly refer to what Dr. Kala said about Chinese girls, and you very fleetingly mentioned about bigness of bodies, and Sujoy just mentioned about fatness. I think when we look at bigness of bodies or big bodies, which was very prevalent in Africa and other parts of the world, is also how women were essentially looked as a mother, whether you are able to produce a child or not, because big hips meant that you can produce a baby, and how thin-bodied women were thought as not an ideal body to manufacture babies. So I think the obsession with bigness and big hips also comes from how we look at women only as a certain category of people. This I wanted to raise when we are talking about bodies. And also just to extend a bit that we really have to think about disabled bodies, because disabled bodies are not even considered as legitimate bodies. As if they do not have desires, as if they do not have any desire to be beautiful, as if they do not have any desire to be attractive. So I think these are some of the complexities that I wanted to bring to the table. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Kalab, I would like to ask you a question on, we talk about young and beautiful. Why not old and beautiful or old or attractive? What about this? What is your opinion on this? I mean, there are people who have been refused job because there are gray hair. There are several names being called to age. Is that something to do with the aging body as well? I mean, personally, I feel it has something to do with the aging body and the skin. So what do we do about it? I mean, if you walk into a parlor, a beauty parlor, all the models are young. I mean, they're in their 20s. Why can't we have models? Like, we are also going to parlors, so why can't they have our photos as well? You know, so I always keep thinking, I mean, one of my friends is also running a parlor. I say that why don't you have, people in their 40s and 50s and 60s as well? So we are also existing. We are also your customers. I mean, why? And if you're selling this, I mean, you're making it, so you make an exception. I mean, there should be all kinds of people as models, which actually I feel. So what do you have to say on this ageism, Dr. Kala? Why
but Dr. Kala is old and handsome.
Absolutely.
How will Dr. Kala speak about ageism? Because he carries, I mean, he's so handsome and he's old.
Oh, yes, so he's an exception. So why can't we talk about old and beautiful? That's my question, Dr. Kala.
See, the thing is that it is as much important as what other people, think of you or the way they look at you. It is far more important the way you yourself look at yourself. See, it is at the end of the day, it all comes to self-worth and self-esteem. And all these disorders or preoccupations, they are a way to fill in the gaps in your self-esteem. If there are no gaps in the self-esteem, whatever people say is not going to affect you. So whenever we talk about whether, whatever the parameter, whether it is the age, whether it is, adjectives can be found for anybody. So, but those holes in the self-esteem have to be there to be filled in. So the whole thing is that minus the body, how good are you? Minus the shape, minus the complexion, how good are you? In your own view. In your own view, forget about the others. And if you think that you are, then, then how important relatively it remains how other people are, whether they are, of course, the discrimination and those things, they are, they are illegal, and there are, I don't want to go into that. Second thing is that whenever somebody looks at you and, criticizes you directly or indirectly through one parameter, I think the important thing also is that fortunately, people these days have very short attention span. I'm saying fortunately, because when you feel discriminated against, by the time, they see you next, they would have moved on to something else. So it's not really, it's not important to that extent. And if one can be convinced about that, even to a partial extent, of course, there will always be, but vanity is important. It's not just other people, it's ourselves also. Some degree of vanity is there, whether we wish it or not. And maybe there's nothing wrong with that. I want to qualify this thing, something that I earlier said, that a lot of these people go to plastic surgeons and they undergo procedures which are not really necessary. But let me correct myself. Not everybody who goes to plastic surgeons or dermatologists is suffering from a disorder. A lot of them, I would grant them, are just exercising their choices, and I think they are welcome to that. That is feeding into a normal sense of vanity. It is only when it is disproportionate. See, the thing is that we talk about cultures in that way, but fortunately, in our culture, is as far as the weight part is concerned, we are not that bad as compared to the Western cultures. The incidence of eating disorders, and both anorexia and bulimia, in our cultures, in Eastern cultures, is not even 1/3 of what it is in the Western cultures. The size 0 and the six-pack thing is not culture-driven. It is fashion-driven. It came from the West. That's not us.
Not us.
That's not us. It's not us. So we have to draw lines and see what is coming from where before we actually talk of, talking about where it actually, what can actually be done about it, apart from, the general treatment, awareness, those things. Yeah. So,
yeah, thank you. So there is one question which I actually want to ask all the three. It's a common question. Words have power to hurt us. So how do you deal with the experience of body shaming? I mean, we are trying to find a solution to body shaming. And what if somebody has gone through, what if I have gone through, or you have gone through an experience? Or if you have not gone through an experience, what would you tell to a victim who has gone through, an experience of body shaming? I think Ratnaboli is not there. So if Ratnaboli, are you there? Can you just unmute yourself? Yes. So what would you tell if you have been if you have had an experience of body shaming, or maybe you didn't have, maybe what would you tell to a victim? How would she or he cope with the body? Words are very, very powerful, they hurt you. I mean, somebody might just make a comment and just move on. Like Dr. Kala said that the attention span is very short these days. So somebody can just make a comment and just move on, but the word stays with you. So, so there, what would you actually tell the victim? Absolutely, absolutely.
Dash off. And when I say that, I mean that we have to reclaim the word fact. And it comes from a deep feminist ideology. And let me just very quickly share an example with you. Many of you may have heard about Ms. Pramada Menon, who does a stand-up comedy show called Fat, Feminist and Free. And it generated from her being discriminated, from being hugely obese and fat. Random people would walk up to her in airport, in stations, everywhere, in the park, saying that, oh, you must lose your weight. Why do you have facial hair? It's not good. And, then she started about talking as to how she fields and putting out the entire fat narrative in the public domain. Where is the fat narrative in the public domain? Where have we spoken about discrimination? Where is that body of experience? Because I remember when we brought her to Calcutta to do a show on Fat, Feminist and Free, we had streams of people coming to her and telling her, thank you so much because we have gone through this experience. So one will be dash off. And as Dr. Kala said, that what are you without the body? I think that's a fantastic quote from today's conversation. What are you? So where is your self-esteem? So deal with that. And secondly, put out fat narratives more and more, even thin narratives more and more in the public domain. And we have to collectively start reclaiming, and I mean everyone.
Absolutely. Sujoy, do you have anything to add on to that, Sujoy? How would you deal with, can you unmute yourself? Can you unmute yourself? Sujoy, yes.
You know, I'm often technically challenged. I apologize for that. So I was listening to Ratnaboli and I was wondering, a lot of you haven't watched my play Happy Birthday, which is a solo act where I put across my fat narrative, and as a part of the play, there's a part of the play which has this fat narrative. And I remember when I opened this play at a queer theater in Toronto, I actually remember somebody in the audience coming up to me and say this, that I never knew South Asians are so brave. All they talk about is exotica and beauty on stage in a completely different way. And you unfolded yourself, you unfolded your life so bravely. Well, I don't think there's much of bravado in that, because I have not been an open person as a child, but or as a teenager, but I gradually shaped myself up to what I am today, primarily because I started saying dash off to people. A. B is bodies that you have are very important to also, you know, as Ratnaboli rightly mentioned, that you need to start reclaiming. You need to start understanding your body. You should understand how, I mean, there are so many times, trust me, Paromita, I get this vibe from people that I'm ignored because I'm fat. And that's so true. I mean, this is true of that question which Ratnaboli asked in the first place. What bodies are we talking about?
Is it in
and
the industry or, sorry, is it in the industry or in social science? I mean,
forget about the industry, Paromita. It's everywhere. Of course, there is so much of this in the industry. I mean, there is nothing that doesn't exist in the arts world. I mean, Bangla theater happens to be, and I've quoted this often, I'm going to say this again in public, Bangla theater is one of the most homophobic community in the whole world. In the whole fucking world, it's one of the most homophobic community. So, I mean, forget about that. I mean, dealing with homophobia is a completely different problem and requires a probably different webinar. We are talking about body here. Let's come back to that. But yeah, I mean, they relate to that a lot. They do relate body to your orientation in many ways. They do. But yes, today, if an actor goes on a weight-losing spree, he possibly, you know, stands a chance of bagging a role. I mean, there's an archetype of a hero, archetype of a heroine. Unfortunately, that is the only notion. I mean, I'm going to quote this from my experience. Body is the only notion that is caught in a time warp. We haven't moved ahead. Body, skin, everything. We're all caught in a time warp.
So don't you think we are actually contributing to it? So when on the timeline, I post a photo and people say, you look like a college student, and I put a like on that, don't you think I am also actually a part of the whole?
Of course, of course. I mean, there are so many times when I post a photograph and there are so many people who say, oh, you look so younger.
Absolutely.
Or somebody,
Why should
I
I look
mean,
younger? I should look
Paromita,
my
there are
age.
days that I don't wear I don't wear a jewelry. I wear just a kurta or a shirt with, probably tucked in my jeans. One of the days that I want to wear it, wear such stuff. Oh, তোকে আজকে কি sober লাগছে, বা তোকে আজকে কিরকম জেন্টলম্যানের মতো লাগছে। I mean, I don't get angry because of this anymore, because I know that, I understand. I do understand.
I feel bad. Can we have a translation for Dr. Kala because he doesn't follow Bengali?
Thank you.
Sorry, yeah. I just said, তোকে কি ভালো লাগছে? Of course, I will just translate that. Sorry, Ratnaboli, I should have done that. Which means that you're looking younger, you're looking beautiful, and if you wear a shirt, if you're, and then they say that you look probably like a gentleman.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the
so
days
Dr.
that I
Kala,
don't.
Yes. So Dr. Kala, coming to you, what are the 3 suggestions you would give to somebody who has already been a victim? What would the 3 suggestions you would give to somebody who is a victim who comes to you?
See, I think that has already been partly dealt by Sujoy when he said,
yeah,
see, it depends upon where it is coming from. Is it coming out from concern? Is it coming from, discrimination? Is it coming from aggression? Many times it comes from aggression in the sense we first decide to be aggressive, and then we look at the person and to find out if he's thin or fat or dark, and then we find the adjective. This is a component of aggression, the body shaming. And if one can recognize it as that this is not the focus is that person probably generally, is a nasty man. And so if one can, find out, one can explain, one can look into the motives of the person who is trying to say you're thin or fat or dark or whatever, then it sort of dilutes the whole. It takes it away from the body. And I think that is very important. And secondly, I think the general education, general awareness that we human beings, evolution is probably, trying to catch up on this, but it will take some time, in the sense that we pay too much attention to just one sensory modality out of 5, which is the visual. It is disproportionate. This is not even natural.
Yes.
And some 100 years back, couple of 100 years back, we didn't have cameras. So this is, partly that, we are moving forward in a discordant manner. We have gone ahead and we have, and all of us are culpable, to some extent or the other. How many of us, whenever there's a picture along with a post, people like it and comment on it. And the text doesn't matter. If it is just text, it is probably just laziness, but it is important. So the emphasis shifts to something visual, which may or may not be so relevant. So the understanding of the whole thing, as a holistic concept, I think it's important. It makes you understand, even to a person who has been watched.
But sir, at the end of the day, don't you think we are always in love with the personality and not the body?
I'm sorry, please say that
I said
again.
at the end of the day, it is true that we are only in love with the personality and not the body. It is the personality that we love, yes, not the body.
No, that's true. People who love, they love the personality. They don't love just the body. And whenever there is love, it has to be, it has to be for the personality, for the person that you are, not the body that you are.
Thank Thank you, sir. We have 15 more minutes to go. I would like to come back with something which is more basic. Since now we have already spoken about body shaming. And
Are there any, Paromita, are there any questions in the chat box?
Yes, so I have already asked a question about the beauty is personal or it's in the eyes of the beholder. I think it's already asked. And also about the personality and the body, that is also asked. And I think this will be there in the form of a recorded version. The questions will also, you can see the questions there, and you can actually go and answer those questions then also. So in last 15 minutes, I would like to go and talk about self-esteem. How do you raise your self-esteem? What are the things you can do to raise your self-esteem so that, you know, it doesn't hurt? Even if you have to face it, it doesn't hurt. How would you, if it's happening in the family, at the office, whenever it happens, the first, thing that gives you immunity against it is the self-esteem. So what are the things we can do so that our self-esteem is safeguarded? So a little bit comments like, you know, you're looking fat, or, you know, your hair is not all right, or why did you cut your hair the other way? Doesn't hurt you as much. Ratnaboli, can you share some ideas? Or you want Sujoy to say? Okay, Sujoy.
Let Sujoy and Dr. Kala respond, and then I will come, because
Okay, no problems. As you wish.
So maybe I'm not an expert in the field. I'm a commoner here. But yes, as an arts practitioner, my arts have given me a lot of reason to raise my self-esteem. My work. I think it's your vocation. It's your creation. It's your creativity. More than anything else, helps me in keeping my self-esteem. But also, the fact that I grew up gradually to become a person who is vocal about his rights, about his needs, has also raised my self-esteem. There were days that I could not possibly look into the eyes of somebody and say that, hey, you know what you're saying is not right. You do not know this. So instead of saying a dash off, I would say possibly keep quiet and listen to me first. So when you say keep quiet and listen to me first, then you possibly have told that person that, you know, I have a self-esteem which needs to be cared for, which doesn't need to be trampled. You know, Paromita, Ratnadi, Dr. Kala, I often, when I often go out for a walk in the afternoon, after my classes are over, I make sure that in the evening or in the late afternoon, I have an hour of time to myself where I don't carry my phone also. I often see, and this is something which I don't know how to address. I often see couples, you know, possibly they are bickering among themselves, and the man is actually pushing the woman. Which is a form of an abuse. And the woman keeps talking while the man, you know, aggressively comes near her, and they say nothing to each other. I mean, it's not that, you know, I'm possibly digressing a bit to domestic abuse, but the fact is, domestic abuse is universal abuse, but the fact is, once you take abuse for years, in any way possible, your self-esteem goes down. You need to address that. In any way. I mean, it is very important to address abuse.
So the boundaries.
Sorry?
The boundaries.
Yes, the boundaries. And here is one lady I know called Ratnaboli Ray, who I hold in. I mean, very few women in my life or human beings in my life I hold in that esteem. One of them is Ratnadi. not only because she's done a lot for me as a mentor who probably I haven't attended classes with, but has shared so much philosophy with me to make me a person who I am today. I followed her body of work. I have followed her. I follow her because Ratnadi stands up for self-esteem. One of the few. Ratnadi stands up for self-esteem in the city. It's not just about mental health. It's about the generic health. It's about the health of mental health is not just about, going to a psychiatrist or to a therapist. Mental health is much more than that. Ratnaboli Ray is one of the few people in India who stands up for esteem. I mean, I'm so proud of the fact that we have not yet lost her to the United States or a city like Bombay or a Bangalore. She's still with us here. She speaks for us.
True, very true. I endorse that too. Sujoy, so to summarize your point, in such cases where abuses are happening, whether emotional or physical, it is important to speak out and to put the boundaries in place. Put the boundaries in place and
it's
speak
very important.
out.
Yes, very important.
Dr. Kala, there is a question from the audience which talks about internalized body shaming. What about people who body shame themselves? That's a question here. What about people who body shame themselves? So it is not coming from outside. It is about body shaming themselves.
That's a very, very good question.
Very good question.
Yes, it is fairly common. Every time you are body shamed, you are actually not body shamed by others. Many times you are body shamed by yourself. But the root of that again goes to self-esteem. But in such, people who body shame themselves, it is probably, the self-esteem which was damaged when the person was very young.
Yes.
Probably a child. It takes us to that time. For one to be body shaming oneself repeatedly, it has to be a highly, a traumatized child. And it is important to find that out, and if possible to go there and see, visit that place with the person and see what insight, because just knowing about it sometimes helps a lot.
Like she needs to feel, or he needs to feel that I am enough. That feeling should come that I am enough.
Absolutely. It has to be that I am enough, and body is just one part of a total whole.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Ratnaboli, we'll end with you. We are on 11:53. Yes, you wanted to say something before my question? Yes.
I will very quickly like to respond to this internalization part. I mean, this whole internalization is intergenerational as well, because the environment, the milieu, the messages, the subtexts, everything feeds to the idea that you have to adhere to certain norms of beauty. It is not about women's choices. It's not about men's choices. So this internalization is very much like self-stigma. And why do you self-stigmatize yourself for a certain mental health condition is because the world around you makes you believe in that. So there is an inner world of the individual and there is the outer world. And the outer world is extremely materialistic, which is constantly going to lure you and constantly going to compel you to be with that world. But I also have a discomfort when professionals say that it's a self-esteem issue and you have to fix it. Because when it is a generational problem, when it is a cultural problem, where it is about intolerance, where it is about tyranny, the larger environment has to be addressed. It cannot be on the individual to fix myself and to raise my self-esteem. Because all the time, if we have to fight a macro situation with the individual and not doing anything to transform the outer world, also is, I think, a little demanding of the individual. Of course, we will do what we can. Of course, we will believe in ourselves. Of course, we will write journals. Of course, we will come to a closure. Of course, we will bring out the narratives. But at the same time, there has to be movements and pride in reclaiming what is not right. So it is not just that the individuals will have to strive to make things work for them.
Yes, thank you very much. There is just one last question about social media. I will leave it to the panelists, whoever wants to speak on that. It's about the media's unrealistic standards of the perfect body and beauty. We have spoken about media a little bit, but the social media's unrealistic standard. Where is the insecurity coming from? Why do we have to adhere to the social media's unrealistic standards? What happens if we don't adhere to the standards? Who is asking us to adhere to the standards? Sujoy, would you like to take it up?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, it's just my point of view. I think social media is a huge bubble. So, you know, we adhere to that because we want to believe in what that bubble wants to show us.
No, it's like you have a selfie done every day, so that every day you get the kick of knowing that people are liking your photographs, and so that you're good looking and you really like that.
No, I mean, you see, I mean, selfie is something which has a huge psychological rationale to it. I'm not going into that. What I'm trying to understand, what I'm trying to say is this question about social media validation. I mean, people go to social media not to just rant, but they are looking for validation.
Absolutely.
And that's why I said that, you know, if you're looking at empathy from social media, you might not get it unless there are people like the panelists who are here, or few of my friends whom I know, like an Anutama or somebody who understands the word empathy, or my sister who's an activist herself. People go onto social media, post their photographs.
I think Paromita and Dr. Kala both are extremely high on empathy as well, Sujoy.
No, I'm sure they are. I'm sure they are. I'm just saying people that I know of, Ratnaboli. I mean, I don't know them personally. I haven't interacted with them personally. And I say this from my own experience, that people on social media look for acceptance, look for validation, but please understand this is very important. And I'm known for this for sure. When I read newspaper reports, I find it horrifying that, you know, a child has committed suicide or a teenager has committed suicide because he wasn't accepted on social media, or his Facebook friends have shunned him. You know, so do not, please try and understand, whoever is going on the social media, that it's a huge bubble. It's not the reality. I mean, fall in love with yourself. Fall in love with yourself for who you are, for not who you are projected.
And then Paromita and Dr. Kala, they will diagnose you and me as narcissistic personalities who are in always love with themselves and try to project as beautiful people.
No,
then we have had it, Sujoy.
No, unless
we have to hear it from Dr. Kala. I can see him smiling.
I know.
See, it's not that. I think, yes, Dr. Kala, you want to say something?
No, quickly in response to Ratna. No, actually, I think some degree of narcissism is very good. It gets a lot of things done, a lot of positive things done for others. I have a pet theory that, a lot of charity wouldn't be possible without narcissism. Unless you like yourself, giving to others, you wouldn't do it. You do it because you like yourself doing
But
that.
but Dr. Kala, say your famous quote. Say your famous quote. Do that for us.
Which one is that?
That narcissism is the most underrated virtue in our country. And I have internalized it from Dr. Kala. Say that, Dr. Kala. Say that for us.
I maintain that narcissism is undervalued.
Undervalued, yes. So we just have 1 more minute, I think. Let me conclude by saying that we need to love ourselves before anybody else can love us. We need to be more aware and about setting boundaries. I'm just trying to summarize points. If I leave any points, anything untied, please let me know. The third is, if there are people who are abusing you, if you feel abused, talk about it, just like Sujoy said. Ratnaboli also spoke about, setting boundaries and also building on the self-esteem through her work. Dr. Kala said that if you had had a trauma in childhood, you need to go back. I mean, if it is like you are revisiting the trauma every time somebody is abusing you emotionally, you need to go and solve that. With that, and also from my side, I would like to talk about focus on things which are positives about you. So it is also important to write down the things which are positive as a part of building up of your self-esteem, so that you can focus on the points which are positives, to be able to combat when unkind things are told to you. It is easier to deal with unkind things spoken to you when you are focusing and you know for sure that these are your positives. Thank you very much for being with us today. We'll see you next week, same day, same time.
Thank you.